Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are very fortunate to have this guest. He's been on before, good friend of the show. He is a poker host and commentator for PokerGo, and you saw him a lot during the WSOP as everybody was clamoring to get their Jeff Platt interview. You weren't a player until you were tagged by this man. He also was a winner at the recent third annual Global Poker Awards that took place on Friday, February 18th. He had double duty because he hosted, but also was nominated a couple times and took home one of the awards for Best Broadcaster. Welcome back to the show, Jeff Platt. Jeff, thanks for joining us here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.
Thanks for having me again, Bernard. Good to see you, my friend, and good to chat with you.
Yeah, always fun to hang out. It was great seeing you at the World Series, which was, again, like, it wasn't, everyone jokingly says it was like summer camp. This time it was like a college reunion, you know, like because everyone got back together. And so it was fun to hang out, fun to see people. It was just bizarre because you don't plan on necessarily seeing people. And then when you walk down the hallway, you're like, oh my God, there you are. And I remember that moment, seeing you and hanging out and saying hi. Before we get into the 2021 WSOP, which I definitely want to talk about because it really kind of took a life of its own on, and really the coverage was a little bit different than normally. I'm not saying in a negative way, I think in a positive way. But reason why we initially called you to have you on the show was because just this past Friday was the third annual Global Poker Awards. It has become a pretty big event over in Las Vegas at the PokerGo Studio, of course, at the Aria Resort and Casino. And it has numerous awards in numerous categories, ranging from GPI Player of the Year, PokerGo Player of the Year. You have GPI Female Player of the Year, Mid-Major Player of the Year, and then really a bunch of other bests, whether it's vlogger, live reporter, breakout player, industry person, of course, what we talked about for you, best broadcaster. So what I wanted to talk to you about was really kind of the event itself. It has always been a really fun event. I've attended it previously for the event itself, and it's really kind of taken a life on its own. And it's obviously been in different places, but I think the PokerGo Studio now has become its nice home for it. Talk a little bit about the PokerGo Studio, because I've talked about it a bunch of times with people here. We've talked about it from a range of like David Peters and Daniel Negreanu and all that stuff, because they play in the PokerGo Studio. But I think that people don't realize what it looks like. And in all honesty, it's a little smaller than people think. Like, people think this is this massive arena, but it's a very, very comfortable place to play. And it really does become a comfortable arena for this award ceremony, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's a great kind of lounge setting. Like you said, everybody is just kind of comfortable being there. So normally, Bernard, aside from our featured table, which is what you see on TV the most on PokerGo with the big wall on the backdrop, we have about 4 or 5 poker tables on one side, 4 or 5 poker tables on the other side. So for the sake of the Global Poker Awards, they just take the poker tables out and they put in actual dinner tables in there. So it can fit, you know, in the range of 80 to 100 people who are in attendance. And I think it's important for those awards to have that live attendance, to have that kind of atmosphere, to have that kind of environment. And I think that makes the show really pop on YouTube or on PokerGo to those viewers. I think when you step inside the PokerGo Studio, you're kind of taken aback, whether you're a poker player or just a poker fan. Just 2 things. One, just how nice it is. I mean, there's a nice bar right when you walk in. The table setup is lovely. And then 2, just how much goes into it, how much equipment is around with the cameras and the lights. And if you go back to the control room, all the monitors that they have going on, it is a special place. And it kind of shows the commitment that both Aria and PokerGo have to this game.
Yeah, and you give a lot of credit and support to Carrie Katz, obviously,
Mhm.
and also Maury Iskandani. I mean, look what they have done, really making poker, just having its really kind of location for people to celebrate, whether a tournament or an event like this. Of the 80, 100 people, was it primarily the people who were nominated? Pretty much all those people, and then maybe a guest or two?
Yeah, I think every nominee was at least invited to the ceremony, and then they could bring a +1. So it was mostly nominees. And then I believe GPI and THM and PokerGo, have their set amount of partners. So there's a PokerGo table, a World Poker Tour table, a Poker News table. I know Poker News works with GPI, THM quite frequently. So that was what the audience was mostly constructed of. And then, of course, if you're a Daniel Negreanu or Phil Hellmuth or Bernard Lee, you can just be like, hey, I want to go. And they'd be like, okay, here's a ticket.
Here's a seat. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the event. So it's the third annual global. It used to be the American Poker Awards, and there used to be a European, but now they've decided to put this together, which I think is a good idea in a lot of respects. There are a lot of different awards. Some awards were not kind of brought into play. Maybe it's something like the mid-major tour, et cetera. But I think primarily that was maybe the COVID scenario, what there really weren't that many events. But a lot of events or a lot of categories were there. There were some repeat winners, which is always interesting. And we say repeat, not unfortunately back-to-back years, but more of the last two, because of course there was not one held in 2021. But Jamie Kerstetter was awarded Best Twitter Personality for the second time in a row. Other repeat winners were Aria's Paul Campbell for Best Tournament Director, and Brad Owen awarded for Best Vlogger. I would say with regards to the vlogging category, this is kind of the first time that there were actually some competition. And I say this because I think Brad has really dominated. Him and Andrew Nemi have really dominated over the years. And, it's very interesting. In 2019 and 2020, I would venture to say that the world of poker, the category of vlogging was kind of like, what? And let's be honest, even the people who were voting for it, there was a lot of controversy initially that the people who were the vloggers, that it didn't even really make a lot of sense who they were voting for. And so I think that they've done a great job. I will say a little disappointing, Andrew Nemi, but also on top of the Daniel Negreanu. I think a lot of people watch Daniel Negreanu's vlog, not only the World Series side of it, but his strategy side of it. So I will say a little bit of a snub there, which is a little unusual, to be honest. Someone who's such a huge name in the industry and not to get it. But I will say Brad has gotten a tremendous following, really great following, over 100,000 subscribers. And that's kind of that little plaque that they always talk about on YouTube. Jamie's just, for people who don't follow Jamie on Twitter, I think it's Jamie Likes Dogs, right? And so like we should just plug hers one more time, because Jamie is just hysterical. Her sarcasm, but her honesty is just fantastic. And if you haven't followed any of Jamie's, I think, am I correct that it's Jamie loves?
Maybe it's Jamie Likes Dogs on Instagram. It might just be Jamie Kerstetter on Twitter.
Yeah, I might be wrong. Yeah,
it's just
I'm looking it up right now. It's Jamie Kerstetter. I know it's Jamie Likes Dogs because I just saw something of hers this morning. But yeah, it's just Jamie Kerstetter on Twitter. So I apologize if somebody's on there right now trying to follow and can't find. But I would definitely look on her. If you like dogs, by the way, you'll love her Twitter as well. And then Paul Campbell, Aria always does such a great job there. But let's talk about some of the other, unless you have any comments with regards to those three. I mean, again, I think those are just, because they've done such a great job, it's just really well awarded to each one of these people. Any comments with regards to those categories?
Well, no, I mean, I agree with you. I think they're all certainly well-deserving winners. And just kind of like it seems Andrew has passed the torch to Brad. Brad in his acceptance speech for the Vlogger of the Year award acknowledged that, you know what, this might be the last year that I win this. And then it's time to pass it along to somebody else. I'm so with you on Negreanu, not only being snubbed for Best Vlogger, but what about Best Streamer also? When he was doing all those World Series of Poker broadcasts, I know he got the biggest audiences around there. So that was very surprising that he was left off the nominees list. So I certainly agree with you there as far as snubs are concerned.
Right. And in all honesty, poker personality, this seems a little strange. Like, I don't think there's ever a time where when I looked at it, I go, what?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like, well, he gets it every single year. So I guess that's, what it is. But, we'll just give Daniel his due, and we don't have to have a Daniel love fest here. That's not the point of it all. But yeah, I think it's true with regards to Brett. Brett's done it. And there are so many of these young people who are making really, really great videos on here, and the nominees obviously show it, whether it's Rampage Poker or Degenerate Poker, Ryan DePaulo, Ethan Yao. So, both of them are doing a great job. To you, of these categories, what do you feel was kind of the most competitive? And why I mean by that is more of like, you're not really sure who's going to win. Like, wow, all four of them, or at least all three of the four, were really, really competitive. And you're like, wow, it's really going to be interesting to see who wins. I have a couple in my mind, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts were.
Yeah, a couple that stand out to me were kind of among the best media content categories. In the photos, I thought we had 4 terrific photos by Enrique, the winner, by Antonio and Haley and Danny. And I could have seen either one of them taking home the award for best photo. Same could be said for video. I do think as far as written best content, Lance had that on lock for his amazing interview with Eastside, despite 3 other really good nominees. And then best video content, I could have also seen anybody taking it down. Unfortunately, that jerk Remco had to win and then steal our stand up for me, please. Potential for that award. So a lot of the awards were really close. Best final table performance, best tournament, best industry person, there are a lot of different ways you can go, which makes, I think, that awards night really fascinating.
Yeah, I like the reporter one. I really, I know all 4 of those guys very, very well. So I think, to me, it was, what's really great is I don't know if you saw the picture that they posted, all the 3 guys who were there. Christian wasn't there, and they all had the award, and they were all pointing at him, going like, that kind of thing. But I think the love that they have for each other, I think, is really great, and that it was well deserved for any one of them. Any one of them should have gotten it. It's almost like they should have just split the award 4 ways. I think the GPI breakout player of the year, although Johan Gilbert definitely it stood out a little bit, but I think that all of them were very interesting in their own right? Vanessa Kate obviously had a tremendous year online, especially, and kind of England just kind of broke through. Chris Brewer coming through. So again, that was a very interesting category, to say the least. There was, again, not to create controversy, but I think it was just brought up by the person who won the award himself. There was talk about the best industry person: Tony Burns, Maurice Kandani, Matt Savage, and Jack Effel. Matt Savage wins the award, but give Matt Savage a lot of credit for being very gracious, saying, I don't think I deserve this award. I think Jack Effel deserves the award because of his tremendous contribution and what he did, and really making the 2021 World Series, I don't want to say flawless, because there's always some issues here and there. But I will tell you that 2 months before the World Series, I wasn't going. I had already canceled my trip. I had my trip all planned out, canceled it, wasn't going. And Jack turned it around with some of the decisions that he made. And I was still waiting to see, after that first week, how was it going to go? Some issues, but to be honest, every year that first weekend has issues, just because it's like everyone just swarms on the World Series. And then on top of it, with people just jonesing to play after COVID, it's going to be obvious. But I think he did a phenomenal job. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He did a incredible job under really dire and a lot of duress, and did it. And I give Matt Savage a lot of credit for acknowledging that. Was that a little bit of a surprise in the room?
I was very surprised, and I think the room was very surprised as well. I mean, you made the perfect case for Jack to put on that World Series of Poker in that kind of environment, and to have it go as smooth as it did, I think is absolutely incredible and very deserving of Industry Person of the Year. And then you know, look at Tony Burns and what he's done over the last 2 years. I mean, Seminole Hard Rock was basically first to come back onto the live poker scene, and they have absolutely crushed the live poker game for the last 2 years. And Maury Escandani at PokerGo put on the most content at the first half of 2021. Bernard, you couldn't find any live poker content anywhere, but PokerGo found a way to do it again and again and again. And again, you know, this is not us bashing Matt Savage, because he brought it up himself. On a normal year, you would always have Matt up there, and he's done so much for the game, and he's eventually going to get into the Poker Hall of Fame, deservedly so. Just this last year specifically, 2021 World Poker Tour they just didn't do that much, and he's the executive tour director for the WPT, and they just didn't do that much. That's all.
Right. I 100% agree with you. And any other given year, he's always going to be in the discussion. And like you said, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when he gets into the Poker Hall of Fame. To be honest, just like Jack Effel eventually will as well. But I really glad you mentioned it, because I was just about to mention as well. I think Tony Burns is a name that the regular poker population just really needs to understand who this person is, because Florida, in a lot of respects, was the place where poker really came back to the world, right? Even before Las Vegas took down its plexiglass, Florida did. Now, again, that's a controversy whether they should have or not. Now, this isn't on Tony Burns. This is just Florida in general. But the numbers were incredible in Florida. Again, of course, they were all wearing masks, etc. But Florida was incredible, and Hard Rock had a lot to do with it. And right now, every serious poker player always looks, when's Hard Rock's events, Lucky Hearts, whatever they may be, they all know that these are numbers that I remember for $1,000 buy-in, for a $2,000 buy-in. These are numbers that we remember after the moneymaker effect, right? 1,000 players for a 1,500, you know, regular $1,500 event. We're not talking a main event. We're just talking a random $1,500 event. Those numbers were unheard of. To get over 100 was a lot. And that's what really Seminole Hard Rock has done. So I agree with you with regards to Tony. We just want to make sure he gets his due as well. Ali, well, he did his job, right? Say his last name, because I always say it wrong.
Ali, I'm sure of it. So he tells us to say it like, just say like, I'm sure of, and then itch. So that's how so he gives you the best tips.
Right. I always say Imsirovich, and I always say it wrong. So
it's close enough. I'm sure he's heard it all, you know.
But he won GPI Poker Player of the Year, PokerGo Tour Player of the Year, and then also one that I think is a very interesting one, and it's unusual, but I like it. I actually do like it. Player's Choice for Toughest Opponent. And I like that award because it is really a very interesting one. You know, you definitely had some interesting players in there. And I think the two that I would have thought of, especially because of his incredible year, was Michael Adamo. You know, no one was hotter on the high rollers this year, leading into the World Series, in the World Series, etc. But Ali is definitely one of those players who he's not that flash in the pan. You know, like 2-3 years ago when he came out, he had that breakthrough at PokerGo. Everyone thought, oh, wow, you know, what a great run. But he has really kind of made his mark and is trying to really cement himself as one of those new players that is going to be legendary. And he seems like I unfortunately have not had a chance to interview him just yet. I hope to very shortly. But he really seems like a really nice person and a nice player, not just, you know, kind of like that robot poker player that doesn't want to talk, you know?
Yeah, he's great. And I've really enjoyed getting to know him. He has this incredible support system in his family, just his parents and his sister and his girlfriend. I mean, they support him day after day after day. His parents were on vacation in Mexico. They saw that Ali final tabled an event at the PokerGo Studio, and boom, they were there in 5 hours. That kind of says what the support system is like for Ali. And Bernard, last year, he had 14 wins on the PokerGo Tour. Nobody else had more than 6. So that goes along with exactly what you're saying. Not a flash in the pan. This kid's the real deal. He's one of the best, and he's here to stay for as long as he wants to stay. I'm with you. I like this award. They only ask the top 100 players in the GPI for their submissions, so that's why it is player's choice for toughest opponent. I was also a little bit surprised that Adamo didn't win. I think Ali probably voted for Adamo, and I'm sure that plenty of players did, but maybe not enough of the top 100 played with him over this last year. I'm sure it was a very close vote.
Right. Yeah. Again, those two players have done an incredible what Michael Adamo has done over the years. You know, there are a couple of awards that we talked about that are interesting, I would say. The award, the best trophy. I always think that that's kind of a weird one. Like, to me, I think there's only one trophy that anyone as a poker player has, and it's the one that you want to put right here, right? That's really the trophy, right? But you know, indirectly, I guess it's honoring Mike Sexton, which is
right.
The
great
right?
part about that is because the winner was the Mike Sexton WPT Champions Cup, we got to hear from President Adam Pliska, and it allowed us for him to share his thoughts on Mike and Mike's reaction to having the trophy named after him. So I thought that was a really neat moment in the awards.
Right. And I think that one of the other, and we'll talk about some of the other awards too, but because we're talking about this, I'm glad that Jennifer Newell and whoever else argued about it, they did that memorandum. Because it was a special moment in there. Obviously, ending with Mike Sexton was very nice. I will say that I'm very pleased that my buddy Ken Tilden made it in there. I'm glad. I know I mentioned it to a couple people, but you just don't know if they're going to put it in or not. And for him to get in there, it's going to mean a lot to his family. We just had a charity tournament that we raised a couple $1,000s for certain charities, one of which was the One Step Closer Foundation on behalf of Ken. And we showed the video to the whole group, and everyone was a little floored, like, wow, Ken was put in that category. And so I'm very glad that someone heard it and we got it in there. So I was sitting there waiting, and I'm like, okay, it is in alphabetical order. So I'm waiting for the T's, and he got in there. So very, very pleased with that. And of course, ending it with Mike was very well done. I thought it was very, very well done. And it's just a shame, obviously. Like you talked about with regards to the written content, Lance Bradley's article was fantastic. It was about Ishai Seinberg, who, of course, founder of Poker Stars. Great story with that. And Lance is always there. I mean, every year Lance is going to have something that's really going to be something remarkable. And then on top of that, the other scenario, like you said, you talked about the photo, which I think was a really good one, right? I mean, that's always fun to see that last one. I did a video. I forgot how many years ago, four or 5 years ago, and I was fortunate to cash in the main event that year, and the bubble happened. And so I just took my phone out and I just circled the room, and I knew Jack was going to say it. He was like, okay, congratulations, you made the money. And I just circled the room with it. And you saw everyone going crazy.
I love those.
Yeah. And I forgot who contacted me saying, can we use this? I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So I think that moment is always a really, really good moment. I think the final table performance wasn't controversial. I think it's just an interesting one, right? Because it's always tough not to talk about the main event.
Yeah.
But the ones that they had here were interesting. I think that Jeremy Osmus obviously up against Helmuth and Negreanu in the final three. Jungle Man in that 50K, obviously being a big one. And then Adam Friedman, obviously going up against Phil as well in the dealer's choice. I think a lot of it was Adam's performance, but also the achievement of what he did, winning it 3 times in a row, not years. I keep saying years, it's not really technically, but 3 consecutive $10,000 dealer's choice. We've had Adam on the show talking specifically about that. Incredible. I mean, really incredible of an achievement. So I think that award kind of honored that more than specifically just the final table performance. Not to say that wasn't good, but I'm saying, like, I'm not really sure if that one was the number one, but because he did it 3 years in a row, it really helped honor that. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's the one I voted for in first because of that achievement. I mean, imagine being there at the final table of a World Series of Poker event with Phil Hellmuth at your table, packed crowd, everybody online is watching, and then throw in that added element of looking for back to back titles in the same event in what's looked at as, Bernard, you know this, as one of the more prestigious events of the World Series of Poker. Anytime you get to that 10K level, to win one of them is an amazing accomplishment. To win 3 of them is unreal, and to do it in back to back fashion is absolutely absurd. So I thought a very well-deserving one.
It would have been incredible if Phil did win, because it would have been a really kind of a weird history moment, because in '89, he prevented Johnny Chan from winning back-to-back main events.
The great storyline.
He would have prevented, Adam Friedman from winning back-to-back, but obviously it didn't happen. So great stories from that point as well. Best podcast, Hardigan and Stapleton have just always been really kind of the mainstay. These two are really the yin and yang. I love the way they play off of each other. And I love the way that James's accent and Joe's, American, just everything just plays off each other really well in the comedy, and obviously Joe is hysterical in and of itself. So great win there for them again in the podcast scenario as well. And then really the poker personality was interesting in the sense of, as you said, Daniel wasn't on there. But it was a Japanese winner, Masato Yokosawa. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know much about him, but read about him more afterward and really see why he did win. Did you know much about him prior to that?
I'm with you. Once I saw his name listed as part of the nominees, I was unfamiliar with him. But Bernard, this guy is a big deal, and he is huge in Japan, and that is probably an understatement. I mean, millions of views on his YouTube videos. He had a whole crew there. He basically had an entourage there. I think he had 2 or 3 camera guys there with him. I'm just hoping, Bernard, I get on his vlog. So give me another 1 million views or so. He's big time. He was very nice. I really enjoyed meeting him, talking to him for a little bit. I think he's great for the game. I mean, you know this. We're always looking to expand beyond just the US or wherever poker is popular in Europe. And I think we've really seen poker grow in Brazil over these last 5 years or so. And Japan just could be the next hot spot. And that's thanks to Masato.
Exactly. And I was going to mention that it's just, you need places for growth all the time. And I think that's good. I will mention, and I've also talked about it in the new segment of our show earlier on, next month, we are going to be celebrating National Women's Month, which again, I think is a spot where there is tremendous opportunity for growth in the world of poker, to increase the women's participation in the world of poker. And hopefully that next month of celebrating it with guests like kind of England, Laura Eisenberg, who won the women's bracelet in 2021. And of course, it's going to be sponsored by Plan Poker League of Nations, and Lena Evans, who's the head of that, will be our guest next week. So the only category that's really left, we touched pretty much on all. Well, we did talk a little bit about the streamer. I think the streamers, like you said, Daniel wasn't on there, but all of them definitely deserved it. They all do a great job. Kevin Martin, Spraggy, who won it, Abe Styles, who's Jonathan Van Fleet, obviously Lex Veldhouse. They all do a fantastic job. I think everyone really watches those. So really could have been any one of them. I'm glad that Spraggy did get his good deserves. But best broadcaster, I mean, what a crew. Jamie Kerstetter, Ali Najad, Joe Stapleton, but we have the winner right here, one and only. I mean, is he holding his award? He's holding his little award right there. Was that a pleasant surprise? Were you happy about it?
Yeah, both. It was a pleasant surprise, and I was thrilled about it. You mentioned the other nominees. I mean, 3 of the heavy hitters. And also on a personal note, Bernard, it was cool for me to be nominated alongside them, because those 3, and I said this in my acceptance speech, were so welcoming to me, just like you were. I mean, years ago when I entered this industry, and that is certainly something that I'll take away from my relationships with them. So when Nick Wright said my name, I was kind of stunned. I mean, I figured like we all had a good chance at it. I thought that we all put in good work over this last year, so it could have gone in any direction. And I'm just so appreciative of not just the people who voted for me, but for the people who just gave me an opportunity. I mean, our guy Dan Gotti would just like throw me in there, and Kara Scott, who I think is iconic, and somebody who I look up to, and I can't wait for her to be back at the World Series. She had to miss this last year, and I just got lucky and was fortunate to be thrown into the mix. And I think that helped me a decent amount for this year. So yeah, I mean, I'm shocked, thrilled, humbled, honored, whatever word you want to use.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk more with Jeff about really, I think that the moment and the scenario that kind of kicked him over the edge to potentially win that award. And of course, that's his coverage at the 2021 WSOP when we return here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.